Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are tackling a subject that feels almost ridiculously mundane on the surface.
Right.
It's something you likely deal with 100 times a day without even registering it. You check a price tag, you look at a shoe size, you glance at the battery percentage on your phone.
It's the invisible scaffolding of reality.
Right.
I mean, we think we live in a world of people and stories, but physically we live in a world governed by constraints. And the master constraint is size.
We are diving deep, and I mean really deep, into Vaclav Smil's magnum opus, Size, how it explains the world.
Oh, it's a beast of a book.
It is. And for those who don't know Smil, he isn't just an author. He's the guy Bill Gates reads to understand how the world actually works. He's a scientist. He deals in hard numbers, energy flows, and, biological limits.
Smil is fantastic because he hates hype. He's just allergic to it. If you tell him this new technology is going to change everything overnight, he'll pull out a spreadsheet from 1890 and tell you exactly why it won't.
Yeah, he's the ultimate reality check.
He is. And in this book, he's taking that same rigorous lens and applying it to dimensions. Why are things the size they are? Why aren't people 10 feet tall? Why are computer chips hitting a wall?
It's the rule book we didn't know we were playing by. And Smil starts this whole journey with a quote that I think most philosophy 101 students have heard. Man is the measure of all things. That's Protagoras.
Right. Panton, chromaton, metron, eston, anthropos.
Show off.
I try. But, usually when people quote that, they mean it in a relativistic sense. They mean that truth is subjective, that cold is only cold if a human feels cold.
Right. It's about perception.
But Smil takes it literally. He focuses on the word measure. We are biologically wired to measure the world against ourselves. A big dog is big relative to us. A small mountain is small relative to other mountains we've seen. It's all scaled to the human body.
But this is where it gets tricky right away, because our language, our own words, they betray us. This was the first thing in the book that made me just stop and think. When we say the word size in English, or even in most European languages, there's a hidden bias.
There absolutely is. Look at the etymology. The Greek megathos, or the Latin magnitudo.
Magnitudo.
Those roots don't just mean dimension. They imply largeness, magnitude, magnificent. When we ask what is the size of that, we're often unconsciously asking how big is it? We equate size with growth, with moving up the scale.
Which implies that bigger is the default direction. It's the only direction that matters.
Exactly. But Smil contrasts this with Chinese and Japanese characters.
This was fascinating.
Yes, the term is daxiya in Chinese, or daishu in Japanese. It's a compound word. The first character means large, and the second character means small.
So it's not just size, it's large, small.
When you ask for the size of something, you are literally asking for its large, small. It's holistic. It acknowledges that size is a spectrum. It's a continuum from the subatomic to the galactic. It doesn't privilege one end over the other.
That's so much more balanced. It's not a ladder, it's a line.
And that's really the mission of this deep dive. We need to stop looking at big as the goal and start looking at size as a set of rules that dictates what is physically possible.
And speaking of that bias toward big, let's talk about how we emotionally react to these ends of the spectrum, because we don't treat small things and big things the same way.
Not at all. Smil points out this weird psychological split. We like miniatures. People love doll houses. They love model trains.
Or that place in the Netherlands, Madura Dam.
Exactly, Madura Dam. It's this whole park where everything is scale 1.25. Cities, trains, ships, the whole country in miniature.
Right. And when you look at that, you feel, charmed.
You feel amused. You feel a sense of control. It's the Godzilla effect. You are the giant. You can see the whole system at once. It's cute.
It's manageable.
It is. But it doesn't provoke awe. You never stand over a model train set and feel a shiver of, existential dread.
Unless you're about to trip over it. But contrast that feeling of amusement with standing next to something truly massive. Smil uses the example of a container ship.
A triple E-class container ship, yeah. We are talking about a steel beast that is 400 meters long, carrying 20,000 containers.
Just try to picture that 400 meters.
When you stand on the dock in Rotterdam or Los Angeles and look up at the bow of that ship, it's a completely different biological response. It's not charming.
No, it's visceral. It's almost oppressive. It makes you feel small and insignificant.
That is awe. And Smil argues that awe is evolutionarily reserved for the massive. For most of our history, massive meant dangerous.
A thunderstorm.
A mountain range you have to cross, a predator, the ocean. We are wired to respect scale because, well, scale usually wins.
But we also have a hard limit on what we can even perceive, don't we? Our eyes are pretty good, but they are tuned to a very specific slice of reality.
We are meter-scale organisms. That's the key idea. We operate in the world of meters and centimeters.
Our world.
Our world. If you look at your hand, your pinky is roughly a centimeter wide. The finest detail you can see, let's say a strand of hair, is about 0.04 to zero point 0.1 millimeters.
Which feels tiny.
It feels small to us. But in the grand scheme of things, that's huge. We are completely blind to the microscopic world. We can't see the bacteria on our skin. We can't see the dust mites in the carpet.
Can't see the virus that's making you sick.
Exactly. We can't see the molecular structure of the water we drink. We needed to invent microscopes to even know that half of reality existed.
But looking up in the other direction, we have a much better range.
Much better. You can see a mountain that is 50 miles away. You can see the moon. You can see Jupiter with a naked eye if you know where to look.
So our whole sensory apparatus is heavily skewed toward the large.
We can perceive the big, but we are blind to the small. And Smil suggests this sensory bias feeds directly into our civilization's obsession. He calls it anthropogenic gigantism.
Anthropogenic gigantism. That sounds like a medical diagnosis.
In a way it is. It's the diagnosis of the industrial age. Since the mid-19th century, humanity has been on a quest to make everything bigger. And the driver was energy.
Fossil fuels.
Precisely. The moment we unlocked coal and then oil, we broke the bond of muscle power. Before that, if you wanted to build something big, like a pyramid, you needed thousands of people hauling rocks. It was limited by metabolic energy.
The energy in your food.
Right. But with coal, with oil, the energy density is so high that we could suddenly scale up everything.
And Smil throws some numbers at us here that are honestly just staggering. If we look at the period from 1900 to 2020, the growth isn't just linear, it's explosive.
Take power generation.
Yeah.
The capacity of hydroelectric stations grew 600-fold in that period.
600 times.
We went from little water wheels on a creek to the Three Gorges Dam. It's an insane leap in scale.
And blast furnaces. This is the backbone of the modern world. You can't have skyscrapers or cars or bridges without steel.
A blast furnace volume grew 10-fold. Now, that might not sound as impressive as 600-fold, but in terms of thermodynamics, keeping a furnace that size hot and controlled is an engineering miracle.
And all that steel allowed us to build up.
Skyscrapers grew 9 times taller, culminating for now in the Burj Khalifa at 828 meters.
But my favorite growth statistic that he mentions is information, because this is the one area where size has decoupled from physical mass.
Oh yeah, the Library of Congress example is perfect. In 1900, it was a physical building filled with paper. It held about 840,000 volumes.
Which is a lot of bucks.
A ton. But if you digitized all that text, Smil estimates it's roughly 1 terabyte. Maybe less.
Which I can fit on a thumb drive now in my pocket.
Exactly. But today, the digital universe is measured in zettabytes. We can't even comprehend that number. The sheer volume of information we manage has increased thousands upon thousands of times over. But unlike the blast furnace, this growth is invisible. It's hidden in server farms in Oregon.
Okay, so we're good at making things big. We love growth. But Smil is a critic at heart. He doesn't just admire the graph going up. He asks the killer question, does this make sense?
Right. Is it rational?
And this brings us to what I think is the most damning section of the book, the cars.
The SUV phenomenon. This is where anthropogenic gigantism crosses the line from progress to absurdity.
I want to spend some time on this because I drive, you drive, we all see these things on the road. And I feel like every year the grill of the truck behind me gets higher and higher. It feels like an arms race.
It is an arms race. And to understand how irrational it is, we have to look at the physics. Let's go back to the Ford Model T, 1908.
The classic. A car for the people.
It weighed about 540 kilograms. It had a simple engine, about 15 kilowatts. It was designed to move people from A to B. That was its job.
Now compare that to a modern American favorite, the heavy SUV. A Chevy Suburban or a Lexus LX.
We're talking 2,600 kilograms or more. Some of the new electric trucks are pushing 300, 500 kilograms.
That's insane.
So the car is nearly 5, 6, 7 times heavier. But the job it does hasn't changed. It is still moving on average 1 or 2 people.
But surely that weight is for safety or comfort or features.
That's the marketing. But look at the ratio. Smil loves ratios because they reveal the hidden inefficiency. If you take a 70-kilogram human and put them in a Model T, the car weighs about 8 times as much as the passenger, a ratio of roughly 8 to 1.
Okay, so 8 parts car, 1 part person.
In a modern heavy SUV, driving alone to the grocery store, that ratio is over 38, 38 to 1.
38.
You are mobilizing a machine that weighs nearly 40 times your own body weight just to transport you.
That feels, I mean, the word that comes to mind is wasteful.
It's thermodynamically offensive. Think about the kinetic energy. The formula is 1/2 mv squared, mass times velocity squared. When you double the mass of the vehicle, you double the kinetic energy it carries at speed.
Which means if you hit something.
You destroy it. This is a major reason why pedestrian deaths are rising. If a Model T hits you at 20-mile-per-hour, it's bad. If a 3-ton electric Hummer hits you at 20-mile-per-hour, the energy transfer is catastrophically higher.
And the design, too, the front end.
The front ends are so high to look tough or aggressive. They don't hit your legs and throw you over the hood anymore. They hit your torso and your vital organs. It's a completely different kind of impact.
So why do we do it? Why do we buy them if they're so inefficient and dangerous to others?
It's a classic case of the prisoner's dilemma. Perceived safety. If everyone else is driving a tank, I feel unsafe in my little sedan, so I have to buy a tank to protect my family.
And then the next person sees my tank and buys a bigger tank.
And the result is a fleet of vehicles that are incredibly inefficient, consume massive amounts of resources, even the electric ones. Think of the lithium and copper required for a battery big enough to move 3 tons, just to move a single human.
It's wild. Smil compares this to a bicycle.
Where the ratio is what? 0.1? The bike weighs 10% of the rider? It's almost perfect.
Or even a Boeing 787. This one really got me.
Wait, a Dreamliner is more efficient than an SUV?
In terms of weight to payload ratio, absolutely. A fully loaded 787 has a ratio of about 6. The plane weighs 6 times the payload, which is passengers plus cargo. Your SUV is 38. You are driving a machine that is, pound for pound relative to its cargo, vastly less efficient than a jet airliner.
That is a stat that is going to stay with me next time I'm at the pump. Or the charging station.
And it's not just the cars, it's the houses the cars park in. I feel this personally because I grew up in a modest house, and now I look at these new developments and they just look like hotels.
The McMansion trend. Smil tracks this data ruthlessly. In 1950, the average American home, think Levittown, post-war suburbia, was about 900 square feet. Roughly 70 to 80 square meters.
And families were bigger then, significantly bigger.
Right. You had 3 or 4 kids in 2 bedrooms, bunk beds, 1 bathroom. People made it work.
Horror.
By 2015, the average new build was pushing 2,700 square feet, 250 square meters. But the average family size had dropped to 2.5 people.
So we have trickled the space and have the people.
Exactly. The amount of personal space per capita has exploded.
Yeah.
And what do we do with all that space? We had to fill it. It drives consumption. You can't have an empty 500 square foot living room. You need a sofa the size of a boat.
And a TV the size of a billboard.
The TV is another great example of a technological release. In the 90s, we had CRTs, cathode ray tubes, these giant glass vacuum tubes. They were incredibly heavy. A 36-inch Sony Wega weighed 200 pounds.
I remember those. You didn't move those. They were structural furniture. Once you put it down, that's where it lived forever.
The weight was a physical constraint. You couldn't make a 100-inch CRT because it would weigh a ton and it would probably implode under its own vacuum. But then we invented plasma and then LCD and now LED. The weight just vanished.
And the constraint was gone.
Suddenly, you could buy a 90-inch TV that weighs 30 pounds and hang it on your wall.
So the moment the physical constraint is lifted, our appetite for size takes over and expands to fill the void.
Precisely. We have no internal stop button. If physics doesn't stop us, we just keep growing.
That's a perfect segue, because while we are building these massive things, we are also navigating a world of invisible rules. This is section 2, perception and standardization. We think we see size, but mostly we just run on autopilot.
We do. We live in a standardized world, and we rely on that standardization for our own survival, really.
Give me an example.
Stairs.
Stairs? Seems simple enough.
You walk up and down stairs every day. Do you look at your feet?
Rarely. I'm usually looking at my phone, which I know I shouldn't be.
Right. But you don't fall? Why? Because your brain has a stair script hard-coded into your motor cortex. In the U.S., the standard riser height is about 7 inches, or 178 millimeters. Your leg muscles know exactly how high to lift your foot without you thinking about it.
And if that height is off, even by a little bit.
If you encounter a stair that is 8 inches or 6 inches, you will trip. Or you'll do that heart-stopping air stumble where your foot comes down in the wrong place.
Oh, I know that feeling.
That's your brain's prediction failing. And that's why building codes are so incredibly strict. We have outsourced our spatial awareness to the standardization of the built environment.
It's the same with paper, right? Smil talks about the A4 versus US letter war.
It's a war of logic versus tradition. The A4 system, used by basically everyone in the world except North America, is mathematically beautiful. It's based on the square root of 2.
How does that work?
If you fold an A4 sheet in half along its longest side, you get A5, which has the exact same aspect ratio. You can scale it up or down perfectly. A3, A4, A5, it's all proportional.
And US letter?
8.5 by 11 inches. It's
Yeah.
completely arbitrary. It's based on old paper-making mold sizes from centuries ago. But because it's the standard here, everything is built around it. Binders, envelopes, printers. If you try to put an A4 sheet in a US binder, it sticks out the top. It disrupts the system. Size is infrastructure.
But sometimes our own eyes just lie to us. Smil spends some time on illusions, which I found fascinating.
The Ebbinghaus illusion is the classic one. You show someone a circle surrounded by big circles, and then you show them the exact same circle surrounded by tiny little dots.
And the one surrounded by the dots looks huge.
It looks way bigger. Because we judge size by context.
Yeah.
Our brain doesn't see absolutes, it sees relationships.
And this has real implications.
Oh, massive. Think about shrinkflation in food. If a company makes a candy bar 10% smaller but keeps the wrapper the same size, you barely notice. Or plate sizes. If you serve dinner on a massive 12-inch plate, a normal portion looks tiny. You feel unsatisfied.
But if you serve that same portion on a 9-inch plate,
It looks bountiful. Our perception of quantity is relative, not absolute.
and then there's the Alice in Wonderland syndrome. I thought this was just a literary reference, but Smil treats it as a serious neurological window into how we process size.
It's fascinating and, frankly, terrifying. It's a real medical condition, often triggered by migraines, epilepsy, or the Epstein-Barr virus.
What happens?
The patient's perception of their own body schema just breaks down. They might feel like their head is growing to fill the room, or they look at their hand and it seems miles away and microscopic. They call it micropsia and macropsia.
That sounds like a really bad trip.
It is. But it suggests that size isn't just something we see. It's something our brain actively constructs second by second. And that construction can fail. There's even speculation that Lewis Carroll himself suffered from migraines and that the scenes of Alice growing and shrinking were actually descriptions of his own aura symptoms.
Wow, so our stability is fragile. But speaking of stability, I have to pick a bone with Smil on one thing: the golden ratio.
Ah, Philly. 1.618. The divine proportion.
Look, I went to art school. We learned this. It's in the Parthenon. It's in the pyramids. It's in the spiral of the Nautilus shell. It is the universal constant of beauty. Why does Smil hate it so much?
He doesn't hate it. He just hates bad math. He calls it numerological wishful thinking.
But the Parthenon, my professor showed me the diagrams.
Have you measured the Parthenon personally?
I have not.
Smil has looked at the data from people who have. If you actually measure the facade of the Parthenon, it doesn't fit the 1.618 ratio. You have to squint, include the steps, but not the foundation, exclude the pediment. You have to cherry-pick the endpoints to make the math work.
So we are forcing the pattern onto the building after the fact.
We're forcing it.
Yeah.
We're pattern-seeking mammals. We want there to be a secret code of beauty. But the Nautilus shell, it's a logarithmic spiral, yes, but its ratio is usually closer to 1.3, not 1.618. Nature is diverse. It uses many ratios. We just fixate on this one because it has a good PR team.
He really goes after the Dubai frame, doesn't he?
Oh, he finds that building hilarious. It's a literal giant picture frame, 150 meters tall, built explicitly to model the golden ratio. He calls it a golden ratio eyesore.
Ouch.
You think it's kitsch. It's trying to impose a mathematical ideal onto reality where it doesn't actually belong.
Okay, so our perception is flawed, our myths are busted. Now let's get to the bedrock, the physics of biology. This is when we learn why things are the size they are, and it all hinges on one core concept, the square-cube law.
This is the most important concept in the entire book. If you take one thing away from this deep dive, make it this.
Okay, walk us through it, but don't just give me the math class version. Give me the real-world consequence.
Okay. Imagine a simple cube. It has a length, a width, and a height. If you double the size of that cube, so you make it 2 times taller, 2 times wider, 2 times deeper, what happens to its surface area?
It gets bigger.
It increases by the square. 2 times 2 is 4, so you have 4 times the surface area.
Okay, surface area times 4.
But the volume, the stuff inside, that increases by the cube. 2 times 2 is 8.
So the volume grows way, way faster than the surface area.
Exactly. And here is why that matters for life. Surface area is your skin. It's how you lose heat. Volume is your mass. It's your cells. It's where you generate heat and weight.
So as you get bigger, you have way more heat generator than you have heat radiator.
Correct. And that simple, inescapable geometric fact is why giants are impossible.
Let's talk about the giants. Smil analyzes the Brobdingnagians from Gulliver's Travels. These guys are 12 times the size of a human.
So let's do the math. If a giant is 12 times taller, his weight, which is related to volume, is 12 cubed.
12 times 12 times 12, that's a lot.
Yeah. It's 1,728. So he's over 1,700 times heavier than a normal man. We were talking about a human who weighs 150 tons.
But his bones, their strength depends on their cross-section, right?
Exactly. Strength is determined by the area of the cross-section. That only scales by the square. 12 squared is 144.
So he is 1,700 times heavier, but his bones are only 144 times stronger.
Snap.
Yeah.
The stress on the bone is weight divided by area. The stress would be more than 10 times higher than a human bone can handle. The moment he stood up, his femurs would shatter like dry twigs.
Okay, so the structure fails. What about the heat? The radiator problem?
Even worse. He has 1,700 times the volume generating metabolic heat, but only 144 times the skin surface to sweat it out. He is a walking furnace. He would literally cook himself alive within minutes of waking up.
That is a gruesome image. So biology has a solution for this, right? It's called allometry.
Right. Isometric scaling means keeping the same shape. We just proved that isometric scaling kills you. If you want to get big, you have to change your shape. That's allometry.
Which is why an elephant doesn't just look like a big mouse.
Exactly. Look at an elephant's legs.
Oh.
They are thick pillars. They are straight, stacked directly under the body to support that massive weight. Compare that to a mouse or a daddy long legs. They can have spindly, bent legs because their weight is negligible compared to their strength. The square cube law forces the elephant to change its design.
And it's not just for support, it's about weird appendages too, like the fiddler crab.
That's a classic case of positive allometry. The male's giant claw grows much, much faster than its body. It's a sexual signal to females. Look at me, I have so much excess energy, I could waste it on this useless giant claw.
It's a costly signal.
Very. If humans scaled like fiddler crabs, we'd have one hand the size of a surfboard.
Trying to hail a taxi would be dangerous.
Indeed.
Okay, so structural mechanics limits size.
Yeah.
But there's also the engine inside. Section 4, metabolic scaling. This is where things get really deep.
This is where we touch on the fundamental hum of life. It's all about something called Kleiber's Law.
The 34 rule.
Right. Back in the 1930s, a biologist named Max Kleiber started measuring the metabolic rate of all kinds of animals, how much oxygen they burn, how much food they need, and you would think it would be linear.
Right. If a cow is 100 times heavier than a cat, it should eat 100 times more food, 100 times the cells, 100 times the fuel.
That seems logical,
Yeah.
but it's completely wrong. The cow only needs about 32 times more energy. The metabolic rate scales to the mass to the power of 34, or 0.75.
Meaning the bigger you get, the more efficient you become.
Vastly more efficient.
Yeah.
An elephant is a miracle of energy conservation compared to a mouse. A mouse burns through fuel like a tiny furnace. It has to eat constantly or it will die. An elephant can lumber along on relatively little food per pound of body weight.
But why 34? Why that specific weird number? It's not 1, it's not 23.
This was a huge mystery for decades. But physicists like Jeffrey West, Jim Brown, and Brian Enquist finally cracked it in the 90s. It comes down to networks. Essentially, yes. An animal is a 3D volume of cells that needs to be fed by a branching network of tubes, your blood vessels. You have the aorta, which branches to arteries, which branch to capillaries. The math of optimizing that flow getting oxygen to every single cell without your heart exploding from the pressure relies on fractal geometry.
Fractal geometry, like in those weird posters.
Exactly. It's about how things branch. And when you solve the equations for an optimal 3D delivery network, the 34 exponent emerges naturally from the math. It's a law of physics.
So we are efficient because geometry dictates that we have to be.
Biology just followed the path of least resistance. The most efficient plumbing won.
And this efficiency dictates how fast we live, right? The heartbeat thing blows my mind every time I think about it.
The billion heartbeat theory. It's not a hard law, but it's a striking correlation across the mammal kingdom. Small animals have incredibly rapid heartbeats. A shrew's heart beats maybe 1,000 times a minute.
1,000 times.
It lives fast, burns out, and dies in a year or two.
And a whale.
A whale's heart beats maybe 10 or 20 times a minute. It lives for 80, 100 years. If you multiply the heart rate by the lifespan for almost any mammal, they all end up with roughly the same number, about 1 billion beats.
It's like we're all given the same allowance of time, but some of us spend it in a frenzy and some of us spend it in slow motion.
That's a great way to put it. We are batteries with the same total capacity, just discharging at different rates.
X for us, humans.
Humans are the weirdos. We get about 2.5 to 3 billion beats. We've managed to hack the system, partially through evolution and partially through medicine and safety. We live almost 3 times longer than a mammal of our size should.
And Smil loves to take these biological rules and apply them to our machines. He compares a fruit fly to a jet engine.
This is his force density comparison. He asks a simple question. What is the maximum force a motor can output per kilogram of its own weight?
And you expect the jet engine to win, hands down.
You would. A Boeing 747 engine is a masterpiece of power and engineering. But if you look at the force-to-weight ratio, it produces about 57 newtons per kilogram of engine mass. Now look at the flight muscle of a common fruit fly.
Don't tell me.
It's about 60 to 80 newtons per kilogram.
No way. So a fruit fly muscle is stronger, pound for pound, than a jet engine.
They are in the same ballpark, and that's the shock. Evolution and aerospace engineering, working completely independently over millions of years and a few decades, converged on the same fundamental limit.
There's a ceiling.
There seems to be a fundamental ceiling on how much force you can wring out of matter before it breaks or melts. Whether it's protein filaments or titanium alloy blades, the limit is the limit.
That suggests that technology can't just magically solve everything. We hit walls. Which leads us perfectly to Section 5, limits to growth. Why trees don't reach the moon.
This is a question kids ask. Why don't trees just keep growing forever?
And the answer isn't just the wind will blow it over.
No, it's a phenomenon called cavitation.
Cavitation? That sounds like something that happens to a submarine propeller.
It's the exact same principle. A tree is a water pump. It relies on evaporation from the leaves to create a suction that pulls water up from the roots through tiny tubes called xylem.
Like a very, very long straw.
Exactly. But water has physical limits. As you pull it higher and higher, the tension in the water column increases because of gravity. The water gets stretched. Yes. And at a certain height, which scientists have calculated to be around 120 to 130 meters, that tension becomes so great that the water molecules literally rip apart. They turn from liquid to gas. A bubble forms.
And that breaks the suction. The straw is broken.
That's cavitation. The water stops flowing. The top of the tree dies of thirst. Smil notes that you can actually hear this happening with sensitive acoustic equipment. In a drought, trees make ultrasonic popping sounds.
They're crying out.
They are. It's the sound of their water columns snapping.
That is heartbreakingly poetic. So redwoods are hovering right at the very edge of physical possibility.
They are bumping their heads against the laws of physics.
And we see this in animals too. The limit for flight.
The Quetzalcoatlus, the largest creature to ever fly. It lived in the Cretaceous period. It had a wingspan of 10 to 12 meters.
That's the size of a small fighter jet.
Basically a flying giraffe. But Smil argues this was the absolute maximum. If it were any heavier, its muscles simply couldn't generate enough power to get off the ground. It would be grounded. Evolution pushed it to the absolute edge and then stopped.
We humans, though, we don't like stopping. We push past the limits. Or we try to. Let's talk about the sea-wise giant.
The sea-wise giant. The sad king of the ocean. The biggest ship ever built.
Tell the story. It's such a great parable.
In the 1970s, during the oil boom, oil tankers were getting bigger and bigger. The logic was simple. Bigger ship, more oil per trip, cheaper transport, economies of scale. So a Greek tycoon ordered the ultimate ship.
How big are we talking?
564,000 deadweight tons. It was 458 meters long. Longer than the Empire State Building is tall. If you stood it on its end, it would be one of the tallest structures in the world.
So they built it. It floated. What went wrong?
Everything else.
Nah.
It was too big for the world it had to operate in. It drew 24 meters of water. It couldn't enter the Suez Canal. It couldn't enter the Panama Canal. It couldn't even enter the English Channel.
It was an outcast.
A total outcast. It could only dock at a tiny handful of specially built deepwater terminals. For most of its life, it just sat anchored off the coast of Iran, acting as a floating storage tank. It was liability.
And stopping it was a nightmare, I read.
It took 9 kilometers to come to a stop from full speed. 9. It's over 5 miles. Imagine being the captain. If you see an obstacle 5 kilometers away, it's already too late. You're hitting it.
And the end of its life, it's not a happy one.
No. It was bombed by Iraqi jets during the Iran-Iraq War. It sank in shallow water. They raised it, patched it up, renamed it a few times, but never really made economic sense. It was eventually scrapped on a beach in India.
What's the lesson there?
The S-curve. Growth starts slow, accelerates fast, and then hits a plateau as it runs into limits. We thought tankers would keep getting bigger forever. They didn't. They peaked with the Seawise Giant and then shrank back to a more manageable optimal size.
We found the optimal size, and it wasn't the maximum possible size.
Exactly. And we see this S-curve everywhere. Wind turbines.
They're getting huge.
They are. But the blades are getting so heavy that the square-cube law is fighting back. We are reaching the limits of materials like carbon fiber and balsa wood,
And of course, Moore's Law.
the most famous growth curve of all. But even that is flattening. We are shrinking transistors down to 2 or 3 nanometers. We are literally running into quantum tunneling effects. You can't make a wire smaller than an atom. Electrons just jump across.
And the cost. Smil points out that building a factory, a fab, to make these new chips now costs $10 to $20 billion.
That's the economic limit, reinforcing the physical limit. We're squeezing the last drops of juice from the lemon, but the juice is getting very, very expensive.
So, if limits are real, how do we predict the future? How do we manage risk? This brings us to the final piece of the puzzle. Section 6. Distributions.
This is all about risk. It's about understanding the shape of the world. And Smil distinguishes between 2 very different types of worlds, the normal world and the power law world.
The bell curve versus the long tail.
Right. Biology is usually a bell curve. Think of human height. The average man is maybe 5'6", 9". You might meet someone who's 5'Z". You might meet someone who's 6'5". But you will never, ever meet a man who is 100 feet tall.
Unless he has those bone problems we talked about, but he wouldn't survive for a second.
Exactly. The probability drops at basically 0. This makes the world predictable. We can design door frames because we know the upper limit of human height.
But then there's the power law world.
This is where things get scary and unpredictable. In a power law distribution, there is no average that makes any sense, and the tails are effectively infinite.
What are some examples?
City sizes. You have 1 million tiny villages with 100 people, and then you have one Tokyo with 37 million people. Tokyo isn't just a big village. It's a statistical monster, a completely different category of thing.
Wealth works this way too.
The Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule, or really it's more like the 991 rule. A tiny number of people possess a massive amount of the total wealth. If you average the wealth of Jeff Bezos with 1,000 homeless people, the average person in that group is a multimillionaire. But that average describes nobody.
Why does this matter for us listening right now? What's the takeaway?
Because we constantly mistake one world for the other. We treat disasters like they are bell curves. We think, oh, the average earthquake is a magnitude 3, so we'll build our cities to withstand a magnitude 5 and we'll be safe.
But earthquakes are power laws.
Yes, the frequency of small quakes is high, but the energy of the big one isn't just double the average. The scale is logarithmic. A magnitude 9 earthquake releases thousands of times more energy than a magnitude 7. If you plan for the average, the extreme event, the black swan, wipes you out completely.
And Smil argues that our modern civilization actively creates these power laws.
We do. Our electrical grids, our financial markets, our supply chains, our pandemics, they are all hyper-interconnected networks. And interconnected networks tend to produce power law failures. A small glitch with a power line in Ohio can black out the entire Northeast. A bat in a market in Wuhan can shut down the global economy.
That is incredibly sobering.
It means we are living in a world that is prone to rare but massive shocks. And because we are so obsessed with efficiency and size, we often remove the buffers and redundancies that would protect us.
We've built a sea-wise giant civilization. It's massive, it's efficient on paper, but it's hard to stop and very easy to sink.
That's a very, very apt metaphor.
So where does this leave us? We've covered everything from the bias of language to the snapping of giant bones to the economic absurdity of SUVs. What's the final message?
I think the message is humility. Smil isn't a pessimist, but he is a profound realist. He's telling us that trees don't grow to the moon for a reason. There are constraints. Physics doesn't negotiate. We have spent the last 150 years, the fossil fuel era, ignoring those constraints, pushing past them with brute force energy.
But the bill is coming due.
The S-curve is flattening. We are seeing diminishing returns in our technology. We're seeing environmental blowback from our gigantism, and we're seeing extreme fragility in our massive interconnected systems. The relentless pursuit of more and bigger is hitting the wall.
So the question isn't how do we get bigger anymore, it's how do we get better at the size we are.
Exactly. Maybe the optimal size for a city isn't 50 million people. Maybe the optimal car isn't 3 tons. Maybe we need to look at the S-curve, accept the plateau, and begin to refine what we have rather than just endlessly trying to inflate it.
So for everyone listening, I want you to try something today. Look around you. Look at the objects in your life. the buildings, the cars, even the coffee cup in your hand, and ask yourself, why is it this size? What physical law or economic pressure made it this big? And what would happen if it were double the size? Or half?
You'll start seeing the invisible constraints everywhere. It changes everything.
Vaclav Smil's Size.
Yeah.
It's a heavy book, and I mean literally don't drop it on your foot, but it fundamentally changes how you see the world. Thanks for diving deep with us.
Always a pleasure.
Stay curious. We'll see you in the next one.